Hello, awesome Boundless Love people. This is Christina, and this is like my placeholder for Javi. He is the real deal right now. I'm sure, as you know, in married life, family life, he is en route, traveling with our youngest daughter, Lucia, who just turned 10, double digits yesterday. And he is taking her home from soccer. So our next guest we're really excited to have them. And I think they understand the soccer pain on many levels. But yes, we are a slave to our daughter's soccer schedule. So that's what's happening right now. But I am capable, and God put this challenge in front of me. And I was just sharing with Gabe and Lori, who you're going to love, that you just love it when God just, thrusts you into the spotlight and says, okay, you're cool, right? You're good. And you just kind of have to fake it till you make it, right? And it's all growth. It's all good. So I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Christina Llerena. My husband's Javier, and this is our baby, our bambina, Boundless Love. This is a book that we wrote together based on many years of marriage preparation retreats. And now we have a nonprofit ministry, really just highlighting and supporting couples at every walk and stage of their life with Christ in terms of putting faith at the center of their marriage. And tonight on Cafecito for Two, I'm very excited to have Gabe and Lori. Woo! And I kind of feel like I stalked you guys. I was really bossy with Gabe, but I think Gabe can take it. I don't know if you agree, Gabe. But sure. What's that?
Sure, it's okay.
It's okay. And Gabe and Lori, I just want to give a little background in terms of just the context in which Javi and I, we don't really know them, but we know them. I've had actually some really good conversations with Gabe, but I'm really excited to get to know Lori through this, scheduling this process. And it's just so cool sometimes to just, especially in shelter in place and in a pandemic, to be able to connect with people this way. So, and I also need to give a shout out to Lori because she did have a birthday a couple days ago. Yay! Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I just wanted to share that we know Gabe and Lori through Sunnyvale Christian School, where our kids attended. And Gabe was a youth pastor there, and I'm sure maybe he'll talk a little bit about that. But it was really those wonderful moments of spiritual parenting conversations in the parking lot where you just have your kids, or you like are in those awkward transition moments where you're trying to like get your kid out of the car and like, you're like, please don't have a scene, right? So in any case, or you just survive and drop them off and you're like, yes, the victory march to your car, right? You're just like, it's done. So we had some really good fruitful conversations. So I just wanted to welcome Gabe and Lori officially to the show. And I'm just going to ask you guys if you'd be so kind to just introduce yourselves and share with folks a little bit about who you are. I know in the intro we talked a little bit about your kiddos, but feel free to share their names and ages and what you guys are up to.
Okay. You can go first, Lori.
Thanks.
Go, Lori.
So I am Lori. I right now am working outside of the home for a little bit, doing a little bit of tax accounting. But prior to 2 years ago, I was at home for the last for 8 years, maybe 6 years, with Karis and Kaden, who are our kiddos. Karis is going to be 8 in August, and
Yay!
Kaden is 4. And they are like best friends right now. Shelter in place has been great for them.
That's a pretty big blessing.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah. Well, I don't think I can say that for our girls right now. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think sisters fight, right? So I think sometimes it helps to have older sister and younger brother or something like that. But anyways, I'm Gabe, and I used to be a pastor. Well, I guess I'm still a pastor. We're just kind of in transition, but used to be one of the pastors at Crosswalk. So there's a lot of ties with the school. So a lot of crossover, and actually I taught fourth grade.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot. My bad.
So I mean, I did a lot of different things. So I think it was, just a general kind of pastor and a lot of outreach stuff. So I think it was always interesting to talk to Javi and meet people and kind of like different walks of life. And it's like, oh, this is so interesting, and really that kind of community outside of the church. We often think about it. It's like, well, we had one in our backyard, so it was really easy to just kind of engage the community and be part of it. And kind of just be intentional about, actually just engaging people in conversations. So I don't know what I'm doing now. I think I'm just staying home and, we're seeing what God has for us, and we'll see, we're just going to see. So for now.
Do you guys feel like shelter in place has given you a new perspective, like around where you're headed? Like, do you feel like God's speaking to you a lot around your future of your family? Like, as I feel like it's a big marker, right, for a lot of us. So I'm just curious, like, what your experience has been like, any challenges or blessings. I mean, I think it's so beautiful that your kiddos are so connected. But what has God put on your heart in this time?
Well, I think in context, it was like, I think there was, I was kind of interviewing with different churches. And then was like even pre shelter in place stuff. We were already we were kind of interviewing and we call it candidating at different churches. So we were on track to kind of be somewhere. But I think we kind of scaled back because it was tax season. So during tax season, Lori kind of she kind of you go overtime, that sort of thing, right? So it was just pertinent, it made sense for me to stay home while that happened, because, it's trying, right? It's so hard when, multiple people are kind of full time and kind of just, burning themselves out.
Yeah.
Right? And then, so I think it just made it longer. Like, I think I was kind of ready for it. And then shelter in place extended everything. And it was just like, okay, well, I'm used to it, but then I just didn't expect that the season would be longer than a couple months or something like that. So
right,
yeah,
it's like more than one season.
Yeah,
yeah. I think when Gabe says it just kind of became longer, it just became longer. I think we were kind of in a waiting period, and then I think. I mean, it was good that Gabe wasn't starting kind of a new position right when I was heading into tax season, so that I didn't have to struggle as much about like, I gotta be home and I gotta be at work. But actually I feel like in all of these things, like I think God perfectly plans things way better than he sees, way more than we can, right? And I think the fact that Gabe wasn't employed full time was actually perfect for going into shelter in place, because then all of a sudden the kids were home, both of them full time, and having been stay-at-home mom for so many years, like I know how draining it is to be at home with your kids all day and not really have a break. And so to be home with both kids and also to have to facilitate all their online learning, that takes a lot. And I think initially when shelter in place started, I was kind of jealous. Like, I want to be home. I want to be home. I want to be home with the kids. I want to take up all these leisure activities that everybody else is, these new hobbies. I want to do that. But I'm totally a doer. And I structure. And I think if I were to be the one kind of facilitating homeschool, I would totally be like Tiger Mom. I would be like, get all your work done. Like, but I think with shelter in place, you really need to be flexible. And I think, and like, you just kind of have to go with it and be on the whim. And actually what our kids really, really needed was to be outside and play. And that's one of the huge benefits about shelter in place, where kids can play. Like, there's so much free time. Like, that's what they need. They don't get enough of it at school, I think. And so the fact that Gabe was the one at home with them doing all of this instead of me, initially it was like, for me, because I'm like, oh, they're not getting their assignments done, and
Like,
oh, I would do so much more. But actually, it was really good that he was with them and he didn't give them pressure. Like he, they got stuff done. And our daughter's totally responsible, so she got, whatever she needed to get done.
right.
But they had so much more playtime. Things were probably a way more relaxed. I think if it was me, like hounding them and trying to be like all control freak, like it probably wouldn't have gone over as well as I feel like it has. So I feel like he's really kind of succeeded in his world a little bit, like just more relaxed and let's go out. We need to get out and be outside. Like I could be home forever, the whole day, and I'm good.
God was playing to your strengths, basically. Like, right? It kind of worked out. I find it really fascinating. I've seen this a lot in our marriage. Javi's in my marriage. And Lori, I can relate too, because Javi telecommutes, he works from home, and I'm more like externally out of the home, and that wasn't always the case either. Like he used to actually, in the beginning of our marriage, he traveled like 50%, right? So it was like he's not even in the country, right? Like it was so big difference. But now he's like always home. And I just find it so fascinating how when you're open to God's will and guidance, how in a marriage you can take on so many different roles and seasons in your relationship. And like you both have sort of shared thus far, like you can, just have different responsibilities, right? And so it's always so cool in retrospect, like you said, Lori, that God knows best, like has it orchestrated way ahead of us with supreme knowledge that ultimately it's way better than we could have ever figured it out on our own.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very, very cool. Did you ever get stir crazy, Gabe? Or are you just like, you're totally chill?
Yeah, I think a little bit. I think, I think it was nice to be at home. I think that was one of it. It was like, it was kind of nice. And then, I think it's more thankful to be at home, than stir crazy, I guess. Like you have moments where you're like, I gotta get out of here. But then it was nice to just be at home. Like, you didn't have to drop off the kids, and, I didn't have like a lot of other stuff to do. So I think, I was still kind of consulting on the side. So, doing some academic stuff. So I think it almost made it easier because I can just do it from home. I think it, traveling there and kind of meeting in person, I'm pretty introverted. So I think, you couldn't tell necessarily, right? But I think but actually I realized actually meeting in person, was actually pretty draining. Right. So actually,
yes,
being able to, it was like just being home to talk on the phone or talk on, on Skype or Zoom. It was easier to plan like that because I wasn't, traveling or going anywhere. So, in some ways I got my own time anyway. And then I got to relax. Right. I think, and the kids, after a while, they don't really want to play with me. I think they just want to play with each other. Right. So I think, if we were out all day, they would want to hang out with us. But I think because we're around all the time, I think it's kind of like, no,
interesting.
There's a casual kind of security, I guess.
Yes.
We're all kind of around, right? So I think, the quality time adds up. So it kind of, it builds, safety and security and just kind of that kind of feeling, right? So
that psychological. Yeah, I find, and I don't know if this came up for you guys too. Our girls are almost 13 and 10, but I definitely felt like this experience for our family, we all got more united, but also more independent, if that makes more that kind of juxtaposition. So I would often, and I don't know if Lori, if you can identify with this, as a working mom, sometimes I felt like I would pounce or overcompensate, what's going on? You know what I mean? Get in there and what's up? What do you guys talk about? Or what are you doing? And and my girls are very talkative. So they usually would, definitely share. But I feel like my rolling back my energy has allowed them, because like you said, Gabe, you have more space and time, like just free. There isn't that sense of urgency and stress, right? And like that drive of like this thing and the checklist. Do you feel overall that you've gained more time with God out of this, or more time to be available to yourselves and your family?
I think, as you're talking about how there's like a little bit more independence, like I totally agree there. I think when the kids were at school for almost, for the majority of the day, and if I wasn't around as much, I feel like they were a little bit more like behavior issues, like acting out a little bit. And part of me was like, I think Kaden just needs a little bit of like mommy time. Like, I think he's hungering for some attention. And then now that they're home, they have each other for like the whole day. And I still find that because I'm out, there's a few times during the week that I'll work at home and they're like, yay, mom's working from home. But they're still wanting to hang out with mom. Like when I'm around, they're excited, but I don't feel they're as clingy as before. But I think one of the things that shelter in place has kind of allowed is way more flexibility in the schedule. So our bedtime when they were in school was around like 7.
Right.
And so, and then now it's like 9.
I know.
There's
like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's sometimes like, oh my gosh, it's after 9. Guys, we gotta get to bed. Yeah. And I think that's really worked out for our advantage, because now I can get home like at dinner. And instead of like, okay, we gotta bam, like, did you finish your homework? We gotta shower, we gotta like wash up, get ready for bed, and then get into bed quick because you gotta go to school in the morning. But now it's like I go home, like we could all go for a walk outside. We could, and then there's way more time to just like, hey mom, can you read to me? Or hey, let's just hang out in the living room and build some more Lego things. Like it's really like we get time to spend together, and they might go to school a little bit later, but guess what? There's nothing happening tomorrow. Yeah. So it's okay.
Like that would be tomorrow. That is nothing going on at all.
And then because of this more like independence and the fact that they're playing together so well, interacting with so well, before anytime Kaden got up in the morning was like, mom, like, and I would have to go to his room or he would come to our room. And then it's like, okay, once he's up, we're all up. But now they're going to sleep later. So when they get up, even if they get up early, they just start playing with each other and mom and dad could sleep. They don't wake us up until someone needs breakfast.
Yeah. Yeah, it can really create, having more space can create, a better quality of life. I mean, in a lot of ways. And Gabe, what you were saying about like you being around, I totally know what you mean by that. Like it creates a psychological safety. And I think it's not just for them, it's for us too. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't need to have my hand on you, but like I can feel you. Like you know what I mean? In the periphery, like I know that, and I do think that, that can give a real peace of mind. It's just a really interesting time, I think, to reflect on all these things and, kind of what have we all learned, right, in this time, and how do we want to re-enter? Like, I mean, I don't think it's going to be normal for a while, but I think a lot of our guests on this show are contemplating, like, what kind of person or parent or spouse do you want to be when you re-enter, when post COVID-19, like how can we leverage this like time to maybe make different decisions, or, some of the priorities may feel different. I don't know. Is that something that you guys have considered or thought about?
I think the thought was that I would be full-time, and then Lori would have more time at home, that sort of thing. And I think that's probably still the aim, right? But I think, in some ways, my like job, if I'm pursuing like as a pastor, in some ways it's still going to be kind of like that, right? I think, I think we wonder like, okay, well, what happens when they go to school? Like, does that just mean like I have like, I have all this time now, like that sort of thing? Like, what am I going to fill it with? I think there's plenty to fill it with, right? So I think, it's kind of the question of like, what, at what point am I going to be tired of doing nothing and like do something, right? That sort of thing. So, I don't know. I think like that's still just going to be the aim. Like I want to be more full time, but I think, I think the question is, I think what's going to be kind of effective or efficient. I think, it's really, I think in some ways I feel like I've wasted so much time that it's like, I can probably, I don't know if it's a factor of age or just like this whole season where it's like, no, you just learn to work like smarter. You're just like, well, this doesn't matter as much. This doesn't matter as much, right? Like the whole part of like, like sometimes you want to make people happy or something like that. You're like, I don't care. Like maybe you just, maybe we're just older, so we don't care. But it's kind of like, well,
a combination of things.
Yeah, I think there's a couple combinations where it's like, no, like, you don't need like, nobody really works 8 hours a day. I think that's the reality of things. We realize if you can work and get your stuff done, then you can have like the rest of the time, right? That sort of thing. So like I'm just thinking 2 examples, like school for like the kids, like most of it was busy work up until
it's so fascinating, right?
It was like 11 to 12 o'clock, and then we're done. Like there's no more work. Like we cannot do any more work, right? And people are burnt out. They don't want to do any more. That's also like for me, it's like I can get plenty done, having a couple meetings, right? And it's like, look, if you need any more from me, just email me. Like we don't need to have an hour-long conversation about this. Just text me real quick, and I can just give you a reply or yes or no. I think it's nobody wants to waste more time than they need to, because people got tired of Zoom and all that stuff. So they realized meetings are dumb, that sort of thing. So I think it's we're all working. We're all trying to up the quality of our work. So I think that's kind of
and like you said, carve out or continue that flexibility in that space to be together, right, and to have more of that freedom. And I think that definitely benefits, like when you're rearing kids, right? Like you're on that treadmill, like you said, Lori, of like, this is the night, like bed, dinner, shower, bath, whatever, like bam, bam, bam. And then it just kind of halts. And it's like, wait a minute. What are we building this on? Like, why are we on this treadmill to begin with? And like, who is it serving? Like, are we really prioritizing the things that we feel, right? So like for us as a family, we've started really thinking about, okay, if we're not feeling like compelled to like worship at a church every week, then we're going to do our own Bible study and make that happen. You know what I mean? And finding new ways of being together. One thing I wanted to ask you guys, and I know Gabe had to get up for a sec, Lori, so I was wondering if you could just address, we do have a lot of folks that, they're either in their first year of marriage, which probably feels like a long time for you, because once you have kids, you're like, wait, what? Or engaged. And I was just curious this is just such a common question, is what would be your advice? Like for, it's people that are just getting married or about to get married, if there was anything that you would want to impart or like you wish you may have known earlier in your marriage, or any wisdom or thoughts that you'd like to share, I think it would be really appreciated.
One thing I would say is learn to listen. I think there were so many times very early on, and even now still too, where it's like, I just want to be heard. Like when we have arguments or something, like we just keep going around in circles because you're not hearing me. And I just want to be heard and understood. But actually, I think one of the things that I think slowly we're learning a little bit how to do a little bit better is to listen to each other. Maybe to consider a little bit more what the other person is like what they're going through. I think in the context of like shelter in place a little bit, one of the things that I think has helped me is it's more of a shift in mindset. I think even going out of shelter in place, because now that Gabe's been home, I feel like he has more of an understanding of like what I was doing at home, or and then for me, like I would get so frustrated when he wouldn't come home for like dinner on time, like. But then now, like, I appreciate so much that grace. Like, when I get home, even if I'm late, it's okay. Like, there's no like, hey, where were you? Or like, but it's like, that's the mindset that I had. But it's like, so now I am the receiving end.
Yeah.
Like, this is what I would want to receive. So maybe now it's easier for me to extend to him. But just, I think, just understanding the other person, like learning to listen a little bit better about not necessarily what their words are saying, but maybe what their heart is saying. Because that's been helpful to then hear, but then also to understand and to then show grace and compassion as you interact instead of more, I'm a little bit more reactive. Yeah.
Oh, that's really nice. That's so helpful. I love what you said, Lori, about like sometimes the words, I'm paraphrasing, but like the words can get like in the way of understanding someone's heart, right? Like sometimes we hook on the word and then, or that's awesome. What about you, Gabe, in terms of any advice or wisdom for folks who are engaged or even in that first year of marriage, like, anything to share? Because I that is one of the things that people really thank us for, that we're just asking.
Yeah. I don't know. I think there's probably two things, like real quick. I think the first thing is probably that like don't take everything so personal, right? Even though it is personal because you're married and like the other person is like special, and like this is one of those, like you have all these expectations of what it means to be married, right? So we carry all of that in. Realize, and then I think there's always like, we want to be affirmed and secure and like, this kind of new relationship. And I think everything feels so urgent. I think that's like, I don't know, we need to get this right, that sort of thing. And then everything's so personal and like you're all invested into this, right? That sort of thing. But it's not, like, I think it's one of those lifetime things. It's like, after you get, like, every year is different, right? It's like you gain more confidence as the years go by. Like there's more trust and there's more foundational stuff. So it's like, like you hit like you hit a groove at certain years, right? Like, after your first year, you fight less or something like that. After 3 years, like you're a little bit happier, like 5 years, you start being like mature. I think there's like these different,
we're like,
there's a different timeline of different,
or maybe
things.
20 years.
So I think it's kind of, it is that, it's like, take the long game into view, where it's like, no,
right.
There's plenty of time to learn and get to know each other, even in your marriage, right? So I think that's probably one. I think the second one is really like, it kind of rolls off of what you guys are doing. Like, I think having those conversations with like trusted people, older couples, right? Like to actually have like conversations about like marriage is actually not that common. Like, right. It's actually not that common. Like people think it's prying, right? Or you're like, don't get in my business, right? But actually,
it's taboo even sometimes.
Yeah. So, but it's actually, people are like, they feel threatened by that because they feel confronted about their problems or whatever. But I think the more conversations you have about those things, and like, not judging, just asking a question, like it's actually helpful because like, I've married people, like, actually I married someone last year. I think they just finished like their first year of marriage. So it's like,
wow.
just being able to, I saw them when they were not married, and then like now walking through with them, like for their first year of marriage and all that stuff. And, the number of kind of casual conversations about like, don't you get tired of being married? It's like, just having honest, like feeling conversation like that. It's, I think it's been helpful for them, a lot, where it's like, we didn't always have that. We didn't have healthy parents to ask, that sort of thing. it just felt like, I think, we wanted to be able to give, or at least, I wanted that for other people. And I think that's helpful. I think just, find someone you want to emulate, or find just people that, you can have those honest conversations with, and just ask for help. I think, yeah. So I think that's helpful especially what you guys are doing. I think, you can adopt couples, basically,
Come.
I know we're like at the edge, end of
heavy,
like time.
I know. All right, guys.
One or two more. Can I add one thing?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, of course. My pleasure. You guys are so thoughtful and so generous. Absolutely.
I think one thing that actually was different about our relationship than I know a lot of people that we've talked to is that we actually had counseling very, very early on. Pre-engagement counseling as well as premarital counseling, but that counseling led into our own individual counseling, because every person comes into marriage with baggage, and a lot of times we're totally unaware of what that baggage is, and it will come out and be indirectly like directed at your house, and like
target.
Oh, totally. And it's like, why did I just react to you that way? Well, actually, I'm reacting to my dad, who but it's not. And so anyways, I think counseling is really, really valuable. I know people who, after a few years, and they go into counseling because things get so bad. Right. But I think it's really beneficial to know kind of what you bring into the marriage early on, so that you know and can identify, and your spouse can even understand a little bit more too. Like, oh, I think that might be this issue. Like, it might not, that's helpful to not taking it personally. Like, I don't think she really is angry at me. I think there's something else that
she's working something out, right? You're trying to heal something. And I love that point. Thank you so much, because it's so vital. And it's been a huge theme. Like, actually last week we had some folks on, and we really also, this topic came up. So I think it's really wise. I think, what you're saying is, it's so clear. It's like, marriage can be actually really confrontive, right? Like confrontational, like not in that your spouse necessarily is trying to be confrontational, but it's such a mirror, right? Being held up a lot of times. And like you said, like we all have blind spots, right? We all have baggage. We all have things we're perhaps trying to work through from our childhood or whatnot. And so, yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think it's always scary to take that risk to talk to someone you don't know. But I think, like, you're so right. If you do it earlier rather than later, you're not having to put out as many fires.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's where it's like, if you guys are sharing your own stories, right, through this, like, I think it attracts, right? Because it's like, there's people who are honest. So then now it's like, other people can, like, they see that and they're like, oh, I can talk to these honest people, right? That sort of thing. But if you don't see that, right, if it's like, honesty attracts, honesty, that sort of thing. But if you're not, it's like, if you're not honest yourself, right, and putting yourself out there, people will not be drawn to that. So it's like, they won't even know where to turn to, right? So I don't know. I mean, I'm a pastor, so it's like, I need to share, like, it reminds me, I need to share some of those stories, so that people feel like, you know what, they can come and talk to me, or they can come to church and like be open about that. But if I never like am honest, right, or share some personal stories, like, they're gonna get that feeling like, I don't know, I can't talk about stuff,
Or people project, like, we've had some moments where people are like, oh, you guys are so cute, or they project this image of you, and you're like, no, we're a hot mess. We're just as like, we're fumbling through it. I mean, the only reason why we didn't fight before we came on here is because Javi's not here. We always have an argument like before, because it's like anxiety, it's tense. Like, we're trying to grow, we're trying to push ourselves. And we had a joke in our ministry, when we'd go out, for the weekend, especially when our girls were really little, it was so stressful, right? Like, getting childcare or babysitter, and like figuring out, all that, and just physically getting out of the house. And we always used to argue. And then by the end of the car ride, we'd start laughing, because we're like, oh, we're right on time. Like, that's we're very consistent. Like, oh, we're super stressed out because we're leaving our kids, and you know what I mean? And then you kind of, so the theme now, and this is, I don't know if you guys agree, but so many of the couples that we share with, the thing is, the longer you're with, you have the same narrative, like you have the same kind of arguments, or the stories are the same, like the topics that you fight about, but you just get, and you'll love this, Gabe, more efficient at fighting. So like the intensity and the frequency go down, right? So you just work through it faster, like, because you already have done it so many times. Yeah. So anyhow, well, I just appreciate you guys so much for being willing and open to just have this kind of conversation. I think it's so nice to just hang with like-minded faith-based couples. And like you said, you know, so much of what we're doing is like, we're just trying to, I thought what you shared, Gabe, and I don't know if you want to end with this and be willing to pray us out, but I thought it was really beautiful when you shared that you're just trying to emulate, you know, build your own faith. And also, I think it was encourage your kids to love Jesus, right? Or have a relationship with Jesus.
Sure.
And I just thought that was so beautiful. It's so true.
Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, just to end on that, I think it's, you know, we're always conscious because, and we come from broken families, right? Like divorce and all that stuff. So I think we're super conscious of the fact that, I mean, you're gonna jack up your kids, right? That sort of thing, right? So, you know, if you're gonna fight, like fight nice, right? That sort of thing, like, like, you know, model what it means to be that, you know, to be a couple, right? For them, because you know, we have one of each, right? So, you know, my son's gonna look for mom to be married to, and then like I'm gonna, you know, my Karis is gonna look for dad. So, you know, I'm hoping at least, you know, we project or we teach, you know, by modeling, you know, what is at least good enough, right, to marry, that sort of thing. So, and then, you know, and then the rest is like, you know, grace, right? You just need help from God. So I think, you know, I think there's no perfect people. It's just you know, do your best to model that. But then, you know, that marriage, that family relationship is going to be that, you know, that teaching ground, you know, that sort of thing. So, yeah. So should I pray?
Yeah, please.
Okay. All right. Father God, we're grateful for conversations, and counsel just really means helpful conversations, and you know we're grateful for that. We're grateful that you can speak through your people and others and wisdom, and we ask that we, you know, remember to, you know, seek our first love, which is you, and remember that we are loved and we are beloved, and you care about us, and help us to know that well, and so that we can love others well. So help all those who need help, help all those who don't know they need help, but help them anyway. And we ask that, you know, you continue to bless the ministry that Javier and Christina are kind of, you know, are doing and kind of putting themselves out there for. You know, that's not an easy task. It's not an easy burden to carry, but we know that you give grace to that, and that you're going to help and kind of use this to prosper and to grow other people as well. So we thank you so much in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Gabe. Thank you, Lori. You guys are awesome. I'm sorry Javi didn't show up. We'll get him. Don't worry. We'll get him. So don't go anywhere.
Is he doing soccer stuff right now or what?
I don't know. We'll find out.
Okay.
This is not for our viewers. So I'm just going to say goodbye to everyone for Boundless Love. Right. We thank you for being here and watching. If you don't happen to catch us live, feel free to check out the recording. We'll be here next Friday. We're going to be with Father Joe Kim at 6 p.m. PST, and we are really excited to keep the talk going. So Cafecito for two. It's been a pleasure. Again, big thanks to Gabe and Lori. And bye, everyone. Bye. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
He's keeping us on.